Alrighty, welcome back to the final part of our tutorial series. What we're going to do in this video is put the game day text in to our design and also put a few other little words around the outskirts of that. And as you can see here, we just got the kickoff and the location and the round one details. Okay, so let's get this game day text in first of all by grabbing our horizontal type tool, clicking on the page and simply writing in capital letters game day. Usually it'd be two separate words, but in this case it looks better just being one word, so let's leave it as one word. Now the font we're going to use is that one we installed earlier called Sport Viper Regular. And the color we want, I'm going to change it to that yellowy kind of color in the Broncos logo. So I'm just going to go and click on the Bronco logo there to get that color. The size I'm going to go up to like 400, I reckon, will probably be a good size. Nice and big. Yeah, that looks good. Just get it centered in the middle of the page there, roughly about there. Looks good. And what we're going to do is put it on a bit of an angle. So we're going to skew this text by going up to Edit, up the top, Transform, and Skew. And all you need to do is grab that top right-hand corner, oops, and start pulling it up. Don't pull it too far, just a bit of a diagonal like so. I think will look pretty good. Yeah, like that, I reckon looks good. And you can move it probably down a little bit so it's not clashing too much with the Broncos fellas into more of this faded out area down the bottom. I think that looks good. Once we've got that in there, I'm going to help that text stand out a little bit by putting a drop shadow on it. So if you click on that text over in the Layers panel, double click on that empty space next to the word Game Day to bring up the Layer Style panel again. And if you watch this text down here, when I press the drop shadow button, a little shadow appears behind it. Now these are the settings you need to use. So add your shadow in, the blend mode in as multiply. Opacity around 50%. You can adjust that if you want it darker. You can pull it up a little bit. So I might go to say 70 is probably a bit far. I'll go 60%. The angle that it's going to be in at, I'm going to pull it to the left a bit to around 135 degrees, should be good. Now the distance and the size are the next two things you want to change. It's up to you what you do here. The distance, just move the shadow further and further away, as you can see in the example there. So don't go too far away, about 10 pixels will do me. And the size, it's not going to be very visible if you make that size too big. So again, I'll probably stick with the 10 pixels and click OK. Now again, you can click on the little eyes next to the drop shadow here to see what that effect has on the text, and you can see it helps it pop out from the image behind it. So I think that's a nice little effect. From here, what we're going to do is put in a yellow line, some kind of a wavy line through the Game Day font there, just to jazz it up and make it a little bit more exciting. So over in your Layers panel where you've got the Game Day layer, hold Control on your keyboard and click on the letter T next to Game Day. And what that does is it selects that text. Okay, now this is a bit confusing, but just bear with me. We'll grab the brush tool here and we're going to change the color from this goldy yellow to a bright yellow. Okay, so I just double clicked on this box in the left hand corner to bring up my color picker. I'm going to pick a nice bright yellow. Now before I can click into this text and draw on it, we need to rasterize the layer, which is just meaning we can actually edit the text by painting on it. So just click once on your page and a warning box will come up saying that the layer must be rasterized before we proceed, and that's what we want. So click on OK. It will mean though we can no longer edit the text, so make sure you're happy with the font. We can't adjust the size anymore once we do this without it losing quality, so click OK. And at the moment my brush is pretty big, so I'm going to make that size a lot smaller. I'll see what it looks like at about 100 and see if I can run a line through it. That's not too bad. So around the 100 pixel mark is pretty good for the size. You can change the hardness a little bit, turn it up if you want. The flow probably doesn't need to come up too much more, a little bit if you want it to stand out. Just click and drag through the text. In fact, I don't like how harsh that is, so I'm going to drop them back, the hardness and the flow. Go the other way and just squiggle a line through your text. Doesn't do much, but if you go to select and deselect, you'll see it's got that kind of brighter yellow line running through the middle of the text. Very subtle, but it just adds another little effect that I think looks good. All right, time to add in the final pieces of text. Okay, so let's start with the top left here above game day, and we'll write kickoff 8 p.m. and we're going to Suncorp Stadium. So grab your type tool, just click anywhere for now, and change your font back to that original one, Kendara for me. You might have chosen Arial or something like that. And the size, I'll put it around 30 point for now, and the color will be white again. And I'm going to write kickoff in capital letters and write 8 p.m. Now, that's a pretty skinny font. I want that to stand out a bit more. So I'm going to highlight it and change over here in my properties from light to bold. And that will certainly help it stand out some more as I bring it down here, which looks much better. Now, I'm going to put in another lot of text now. And it's going to say, what was it going to say? Suncorp Stadium, so the location of our event. So let's write in capital letters again, Suncorp Stadium. Now this time, we're not going to make it bold. We're going to add a bit of contrast here by changing it. I'll go back to regular, see how that looks. No, in fact, I think it's light that we want to go with. So I'll go back to the really light style. We'll see if we can get these looking good here. Okay, now we want to get them on the same angle as game day. So if I select both of those, go to Edit, Transform, and Skew, we should be able to just pull them up from the top right corner and get a similar kind of angle. That text there, I think that looks about right. So we can just pull it up a little bit. And just get it into a good spot. If you need to, you could probably put a little bit of a glow or something around these to help them stand out a bit. In fact, we might try that. So I'm going to just double click on Suncorp Stadium's layer here over in the empty space. And we might try and we'll try drop shadow first. Kind of works. Outer glow kind of works too. Either or, I might go with drop shadow and just click on OK. Same for the text there. It says kickoff. I'll just double click on that layer and put in a drop shadow. Click OK. Just adds a little bit of darkness behind the text, so it's a little bit easier to read on the on top of the boys' image there. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. I'm actually going to delete this Broncos logo here now. We don't need it anymore, so I'm just going to hit the trash can on that and get rid of it so we can see how our design is looking. It's not looking too bad. Okay, so this text here, the kickoff 8 p.m, I'm going to hold Alt and drag it down. Actually, that's giving me Suncorp. That's all right. It's giving me a copy of the Suncorp. So when you hold Alt and click and drag on something, it creates a duplicate copy. So in this one, we need to write versus Dolphins. So VS and then Dolphins. And I'll see if I can get a duplicate of this kickoff text. I want to zoom in a bit to click on it. There we go. There's my duplicate. I held down Alt and just clicked and dragged off it. And this duplicate text, I think, is going to say round 1. It's not actually what round they play each other, but just for our practice sake, we'll say they're playing in round 1 against one another. And we'll go and get it. So it's pretty much in line with the bottom of this Y. I might even bring a ruler out just to get these lined up nice and neatly. That ruler's snapping onto this text. Here we go. So round 1 can go about there, and the Dolphins can go down below it about there. Okay, and you can just drag that ruler back off your page. Actually, you might get this other text lined up at the start of the G. It's pretty close already, but we'll just get it perfect. Okay. So I think that is looking pretty good. If anything, I'd probably move the text down a bit. So if I go and select some of these text layers, I could potentially just nudge them all down a bit. Go too far. Grab that one and that one. Oops. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. So if I press Control-0 just to zoom back, I'm pretty sure I've got this little game day social media post all finished off. So I know it was a little bit of a long tutorial, but I think the end result speaks for itself. It looks pretty cool. If there's anything I would change, it's probably the brightness of our two players. I'm gonna do it just because it's going to bother me. So I'm going to click on Adam Reynolds first of all and go down to the little circle at the bottom and just add in probably a brightness and contrast effect here. Now when the brightness and contrast comes in, remember to right click on it and choose Create Clipping Mask. That way it just applies an effect to the Reynolds picture only, not the entire design. You can just turn that brightness down a little bit, maybe turn the contrast up a little bit, so they aren't quite as bright. They seem to be a little bit too bright for my liking, but a little bit of contrast, brightness there. Not too bad. So do the same for Reece Walsh. So -20 for the brightness and then 5 for the contrast. So I'm going to click on the Walsh layer. We're going to add in a brightness and contrast. What do you call them? Adjustment layer. We'll right click on the brightness and contrast and create a clipping mask. And then you can turn that brightness down to roughly -20 and then the contrast up to about 5. Well, I think that looks pretty good. So when you're done, File, Export, and Export As. Now a box will appear. You need to export it as a JPEG image, so JPG. I like to set the quality to maximum amount high. And there's a blue button at the bottom, a bit hard to see on my screen at the moment because my resolution's a bit buggered, but you just need to export it. Okay, and it will ask you where you want to save it. I'll just call it social media post. We call it game day post if you wanted to. Click on save. That's done. Okay, the other way you need to save it for your assignment when you get to it is File and Save As, and save it as a PSD file. Okay, now a PSD file will let me see all the different layers over here, and you can come back and edit it at any time. And that's it. You are done. So congratulations on finishing your game day social media post.